أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فقلت استغفروا ربكم إنه كان غفارا يرسل السماء عليكم مدرارا ويمددكم بأموال وبنين ويجعل لكم جنات ويجعل لكم أنهارا ما لكم لا ترجون لله وقارا صدق الله العلي العظيم وصدق رسوله النبي الكريم ونحن على ذلك من الشاهدين. I bear witness that without Allah there is no God. I bear witness to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. May the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him. Is the last, the final messenger of Allah, after whom no prophet, old or new, will come. And I begin in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. The couple of verses of the Quran that I've recited in Arabic, taken from chapter 71, and it is a chapter that is entitled after a particular prophet of Allah, very well known prophet of God, accepted by most of the major religions in some form or the other. And that is the prophet Noah. And Noah is speaking here, in a sense, complaining to Allah. What is indicated to Allah is efforts in the propagation of Islam. I mean, I interpret what he says here in the Quran in this way. Noah says, I preached What did I preach? I preached. Seek out your nurturer, the one who nurtures you. Look for him to contain your feelings. He is always preventing wrongdoing. He sends divine blessings streaming upon you, and too, you are assisted with resources and intelligence as he provides for you happiness and he provides for you abundance. How is it that you don't expect grandeur from Allah? We live in a world today in which there is one particular word that is very, very common. It's been quoted on almost every media, in almost every country of the world, and it is one word that is expected to determine the future of all human beings on the face of this world. And that word is the word tariff. I'm sure you have heard it. I'm sure you have heard about it. I'm sure you probably don't even know what it is, but it has always been mentioned, and countries are concerned about what is called tariff. What many people do not know, they are unaware of the fact that the word tariff is an Arabic word. It has come from the word ta'arif in Arabic, and it means to notify and specify your position, to notify people, to let them know where you stand. It doesn't mean taxes, but it can mean that as well. Anything. You notify people of your particular position. In a sense, zakat is a tariff. Allah has notified us that He wants us to spend in His way. And we look at the principles of Islam and we'll see it applies not only to financial contributions, but even our behavior as well. So since this tariff is going to affect each and every one of us, particularly the young ones in the coming generations, because there is going to be a new kind of World War III as it were, not so much with weapons of destruction, but economic weapons, the weapon of tariff, where each country is threatening to put tariffs on the other one, and the tariff war is about to begin, if it has not already. Some things that it will start on Wednesday. So that today's Eid al-Fitr sermon is really designed for the future generation. You young ones who are coming up. Some of them may not know, may not understand, and we have the recordings, perhaps in years to come they will listen to this sermon. But the older ones who are listening will be able to understand and impart some of the messages and some of the points that are raised in this particular sermon. The first thing we need to understand is our outlook on religion. A religion which is based on past tradition cannot have a message for the future. So that our young people need to know that there is a future of Islam, not based upon past tradition, because that can become very, very confusing. We have seen right here, in our own country and in many parts of the world, the mere declaration of Eid al-Fitr was, from government perspective, a very confusing issue. They had to change their announcement of the date of Eid. There are some Muslims who fasted on the second day of Ramadan, and yesterday was the 29th day. They didn't see the moon last night, and so they decided they will have Eid today. Why? Not because they sighted the moon. Some said because AAII has declared it, the largest Muslim organization in Trinidad. There's no hadith that says you have to end the fast with the announcement by AAII. They could have easily said, Ahmadiyya Anjuman has declared that Eid al-Fitr is on Monday, the 31st of March. So that people, even though they are calculating, they don't know what they are doing. They're still in ignorance so far as that is concerned. And we as members of the Ahmadiyya movement have been doing our calculation for over 50 years. We have never been wrong. So that there's a conflict in trying to give religion of the future of calculation, but keeping to the past of sighting of the moon, and is causing confusion. There has to be a decision one way or the other. Either stick with the tradition and give up calculation, or stick with calculation and give up the what is called tradition or hadith, as the case may be. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, adopted a similar attitude, and this is where the success of Islam lay. He broke away from the incorrect traditions of his forefathers. The Quran says, what, even though your forefathers were wrong, you're going to follow them? The Quran quite clearly says that. So a new approach to Islam has to come forward, a new approach for our young people. And that new approach cannot come from human beings. Human beings different people will give different opinions. In Canada, for example, I was pointing out there are two Hilal committees. One said that Eid is on Sunday, and the other one said Eid is on Monday. How many Hilal committees? Which should you follow? And again, there is confusion in different parts of the world. Saudi Arabia declared Sunday as Eid. People said it was impossible to see the moon on Saturday in that particular region. So that we find this kind of confusion is there among human beings in differences and discrepancies. So the new approach to Islam has to come from the originator of the religion, Allah Himself. That is why Allah has sent the Mujaddid. He has appointed an individual who will convey the concepts and ideas that Allah wants in order to, not to modernize the religion, but to modernize our thinking. The religion is not changed. Our thinking is changed. Our approach to the religion of Islam is changed. And that is why it is so important for us to accept the Mujaddid of the age, Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, founder of the Ahmadi movement in Islam, who came in the 14th century, making the bold claim that he has been appointed by God for this particular purpose. So if tariff means information, notification, what are we informed about? Not only about taxes, not only about economic situations, we are notified by Allah about Ramadan. The word Ramadan literally means heat, and heat is a form of energy. And what the Quran points out to us, that this is a month in which we develop spiritual energy by straining or stretching the physical energy to its limit. So our physical self, the energy that we have in our physical self that is provided by food, we leave the food, we abstain from it, and we see what strength remains within us without that nutrient that is being given to us. Without that energy, we work with the energy within us. The Quran says this is something that was there before. Jesus said, you shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that cometh out of the mouth of God. In other words, we don't live by food alone, but by the words of the Quran, the word of God that comes. So that fasting is something, it's a taxing of ourselves. That's why it's a tariff. It's a taxing of ourselves. And then fasting ends, because the Quran tells us Allah desires ease for you, not hardship. And He has brought this to an end. And so the month of Shawwal comes. What is Shawwal? Shawwal is a month to rise up. We have energy now. We have obtained physical, moral, spiritual energy in Ramadan. Now we have to rise up for action, to use that energy. Just as you have energy in an engine or in any other motor or any other source, that energy has to be utilized and be productive. The word Shawwal literally means the tail of a scorpion. And the reason why it has become a means of rising for action is that when a scorpion wants to strike, it raises its tail. So the tail raises and then it strikes. So the rising of that tail is an indication of readiness to act, whether for good or whether for bad. But in our case, because we have developed so much of spiritual energy, we will act in a spiritual way. We will act with more verve and more fervor in our duties and responsibilities. So while Ramadan gives us spiritual energy, Shawwal gives us spiritual opportunity. This is the opportunity to utilize that energy. As the Quran says, there is ease after hardship. And Eid al-Fitr is given to us because the Quran says Allah has turned to you and removed the burden of fasting. That is why we have Eid. The burden of fasting has been removed according to the Quran. So that Eid is in fact a day of happiness and a day for happiness, a day of happiness and a day for happiness, that we have to be happy on this day. There are some who seek happiness by joining the bandwagon of others. They are only happy when others are happy and they go along with them. They may not be happy themselves, but they join the bandwagon. Everybody is doing it, so we are doing it too. Why and how and whatever reason, they don't know. They don't understand why people are celebrating Eid today and they did not see the moon when they said they should have seen it. Because everybody says so. Everybody is doing it. Asha said that today is Eid and therefore they go along without questioning who saw it, when was it seen, with the kind of weather we had last night. So that there are other people, however, who create happiness by making themselves happy or making others happy. And this is one of the things we in this Jamaat do to ourselves. We make ourselves happy and we make other people happy. Eid al-Fitr is designed for that too, where we look forward to giving to those who are not as fortunate as we are, even within our own Jamaat or even outside, as the case may be. So Eid al-Fitr is a festival of happy feasting. It's a feast after the fast. It's the happiness of feasting after a harsh fasting, after a taxing fasting. But the festival is also given before. Eid al-Fitr may not have been, well, it was called that, even before the Prophet Muhammad. The Quran speaks of, in the time of Moses, he was appointed a festival, which was in the forenoon, which was before noon, in the morning, early morning. The Quran also gives the word Eid. This is the only place in the Quran where the word Eid is referred to, and it is in the mouth of Jesus, who describes it as a heavenly food coming from Allah in chapter 5 of the Quran. Jesus said, give us this day an Eid, give us food from heaven that will be an Eid for us. It will always make us happy. And in the case of, it's coincidental that in today's celebration of Eid al-Fitr, it coincides with both the tradition of Moses and the tradition of Jesus. That the Jews will be celebrating the Passover and the Christians will be celebrating Easter. And both of these are what are called originally feasts of what is known as unleavened bread. The Passover and Easter. Unleavened bread means bread that doesn't have yeast, it doesn't rise. And the reason for that is that the bread had to be made so quickly for them to leave Egypt, that they, or the land in which they were, in order that they had to do it so quickly, so they didn't have time to wait for the bread to rise. So it's called unleavened bread. And it's symbolic of the fact that we have sometimes to run away from any kind of danger when Allah calls us. But the word fitr also means to break or to split. To break something. And it means breaking away from our old habits and our old attitudes and our old approaches. Breaking away from our old traditions. And moving into a new era, a new outlook in life. When we look at the human being, as the Quran tells us, we'll find that the human being is made of clay. And so tends to cling to the earth. We love the things of the earth. Anything that is made of the earth, whether we use the iron, the steel, the gas, the oil, the air, whatever we use, we enjoy. But the Quran also tells us that each person is appointed by Allah as what is known as a Khalifa. Inni ja'ilun fil ardi Khalifa, Allah says, I am going to appoint on earth a Khalifa. One who will represent me, a Khalifa on God of this earth, a ruler, a vicegerent, and angels will bow down to them. Angels will bow down to him or to her. So the purpose of religion is to make us rulers in the earth. Not to rule over other people, but to rule over ourselves. To have a containment of our own selves so that we can be masters of ourselves. We can be kings and rulers of ourselves, that we could direct our physical body to do what we want it to do. Whether there are financial difficulties, whether there are health issues, we have control over ourselves, but we are empowered by Allah, because we are the Khalifa of Allah. And so, the Quran points out to us that angels are given to us to make the individual rise to the very edge of divinity. Meaning, divinity means the attributes of Allah. So we become the Khalifa of Allah when we institute and implement the attributes of Allah in our lives. Then it is then that we become Allah's Khalifa. How can we achieve this? There is in science a word that is called neuroplasticity. Neuro is, of course, the nerves or the brain, and plasticity, as you know, means that which can be moved as plastic. So neuroplasticity means a reprogramming of your mind, a reprogramming of your outlook, your attitude, your approach to life. Many people are searching for that. You will note that our body reacts to certain things that are in our mind. You're watching a movie, young people are watching their video games. It is as if we are actually having the experience in that moment. You're driving a car in a video game and you feel you're actually driving. You are just sitting there watching the screen. But you are anxious and you're moving with the vehicle, trying to avoid the obstacles. Or in fact, you're watching a scary movie and you feel frightened, even though you know the danger is not real, it's there on the screen, but you feel it. You laugh when you see things there, even though it's just a sound coming from a speaker and a picture coming on a glass. So you know the danger is not real, you know what is there is not real, but your mind cannot distinguish between reality and fantasy, imagination. So once we decide that the thought is true, the person believes something, that becomes a belief. The person thinks this is something, whether it is right or wrong, it becomes a belief. So the Quran wants us to reprogram our minds with a new belief, with a new outlook, with a new approach. And all the systems of Islam are merely tools to reprogram our minds in accordance with the will of Allah. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So what is the belief that drives you? People have, for example, if you take the negative things, fear of spiders, or frogs, or snakes. They will see a spider there, a young child, or they'll see a bug, and they're afraid of it. It's not doing them anything. No harm is there, but there is a fear in their mind, and they function with regards to that fear. Until they can reprogram it and say, I am a human being. I am stronger and wiser than that creature which is in front of me. And therefore it should not scare me. So that the Quran wants us to change our mind, and there are certain things that we can do. For example, we can replace paranoia, fear, with hope. When you have certain expectations that everything will be okay, you can remove that fear. Some people have the attitude that I am worthless. I am not lovable. I am not safe. They're afraid of crooks and criminals and all kinds of things. They don't have confidence in themselves or even in God. They become impatient, and some go into distress. They cannot face up if people are bullying them, if people are ill-speaking them. And so many issues are there. Our young people will be faced with these challenges as they grow along. We see it already, that young people are committing suicide because of bullying. Ever since I was small, I was taught the phrase that sticks and stones can break my bones, but words could never hurt me. And perhaps if young people are taught that, they will realize that no matter what a person says about you, it cannot hurt you. Those are what is in their mind. You should not let their mind control your behavior. So that we will find that there is another step in changing our minds, to change our perception that our imaging mind, the mind that we think and fantasize and see about things that we imagine, is fighting against our logical mind, to realize there's really no fear. Many people say, well, you know, in Trinidad there's so much of crime, and they always feel to come to my house. It's nearby, look, nearby is all. We take our precautions, the Quran tells us. That is what is called taqwa. We take our precaution, but we also realize that there is a hand that is protecting us. We have seen it even in natural disasters, that tornadoes and fires sometimes come and destroy every other building but one stands, a mosque stands, or church stands. And nothing untouched, even though around everything is destroyed. So Ramadan and Shawwal teach us that after sacrifice and abstinence, there is opportunity, and then, as the Quran says, grandeur, greatness. Why is it? Why don't you not hope and expect from Allah greatness and grandeur? So that we are embarking, many of our young people are embarking on a lifestyle in a few weeks' time as students in writing the examination. Some are not. Some are writing this year, some are writing next year. But those who are writing the exams particularly, you will find that there are different kinds of students. Some of them work hard without religion. They have nothing to do with religion. They work hard, they ignore religion, and still they have they are successful. And there are some who work hard and they have time for religion. They attend mosques, they keep their fast and so on. What's the difference with a person who doesn't follow religion but is successful, and a person who follows religion and is also successful? The Quran indicates to us that each person will have a reward for, you will not get but what you work for. So if you work for something, Allah will give it to you. Allah does not discriminate. He rewards both for their hard work. But those who attended to their religion succeeded in spite of their additional attendance at mosque, their religious duties and so on, and they have developed an all-round character. Where a person who ignores religion and is successful, they become selfish. They are full of themselves that I did it on my own, I didn't need God, I didn't need prayers and so on, I did it. They become arrogant. A person who follows religion will say, I'm grateful to God, I'm grateful to my parents. It's a totally different attitude. So the success might be the same, but the effect on the personality is different. So the challenge of our young people who are writing examination, because you will move on to a new phase. Those who are writing the essay will move on to secondary school, and those who are writing other examination will move on to either the job environment, or they'll go to university or some trade school, as the case may be. So they have a challenge before them, and the challenge is that whether you will continue to uphold your religion or allow that new environment, now that you're going to school, now that you're going to secondary school, or you're going to university, will you allow that environment and to develop you and influence you away from your religion? Because the demands are greater as you increase. Your commitments to your studies become greater. Will you abandon your religion and your duty to your parents, to your friends, to your jamaat? That is something you have to consider. The challenge will come. So this is the age when you are transitioning as adults. You're moving on to a different phase in life. And you will be thinking and behaving independently of your parents. You're a man or woman on your own. You'll be thinking on your own. And so, the relevance of fasting and Shawwal, Ramadan and Shawwal, is that we know that food plays a very great part in molding the human character. We say a sound mind creates a sound morality, but only in a sound body. You have to be healthy. If you are sick, you can't study, you can't function properly. So the Quran therefore forbids all foods that injure the body, that injures the mind, that injures the soul. Eat and drink that which is good and clean, but be not extravagant. Stay completely away from alcohol, from drugs, from gambling, from idols and other forbidden foods. These are guidelines given by the Quran in order to help you maintain maintain your religious attitude and approach. So good conduct in your future years requires the correct look. You can scold someone with the eyes. You can wink approval. Either of these you can do. Or you have the correct word. Words can hurt or words can heal. So you have to make that choice. And the correct touch. You can use your hand to strike another individual with a piece of wood. As a 33-year-old incident is now coming up, and surprisingly, a religious leader says, when that incident happened, I didn't punish anybody, I forgive them. In other words, I condone any kind of violence and bullying and so on. That's okay. And today, when people are using that and they're abusing and making political issue out of it, I forgive them as well. So just forgive. We don't see that when it comes to the wars that have been fought in the Eastern world and in the European world. We don't see that kind of forgiveness. We don't see the turning of the other cheek. We see in warfare, not welfare. Warfare, people are fighting. And when people fight, they say, well, forgive them. Because perhaps they are of financial benefit to you. So you young people, as you grow older into adolescence, you would want to develop relationships, and the Quran teaches us they are essential ingredients for close relationships, whether with your friends, male friends, female friends, other teachers and others as well. There's patience and prayer. Don't rush things. Grow gradually. Grow gracefully. There is also zikr. Remember the favors of Allah. Always remember where your successes came from Allah. Focus on the happy times of the past. And there is also what the Quran called nashitati, cheerfulness, uprightness, enthusiasm. Approach your studies and your life ahead with enthusiasm. Allah does not approve of failing to make use of His benevolence. He has given you so much and He wants you to make use of it. He doesn't want ungratefulness, kufr, ungratefulness, that you don't use what He has given you. But we must also realize that young people are growing up in an adult world, and the adults have an example to set forth. So the Quran gives advice also to adults, and especially to working people. It says to make our world one of welfare, not warfare. Always looking and caring for other people. That is one of the things we encourage in our Jamaat. And therefore we have to invest in our religion for our children by spending time, by spending effort, and by spending money. We know on Eid Day children love to get money. So we have to invest in our children. The Quran says, Ya ayyuhal insan, ma gharraka bi rabbikal kareem. O human being, what has influenced you to turn away from your commitment to those who nurtured you? Your parents nurtured you, your teachers nurtured you, your religion nurtured you, your leaders, your religious leaders, your sports leaders, they all nurtured you. Don't turn away from them. They gave you good guidance and guidelines. You know you follow the right religion when you possess a heart which is entirely free from stinginess, from malice, from anger, and from insincerity. People seldom realize what it means for a heart to remain free of these pollutions. Such a condition of the mind in a person certainly creates real happiness in him or her. To be free from stinginess, to be free from malice and anger, it's a happy feeling. Look at the person who has hate in him, anger in him. They are not happy. Look at the person who is stingy. They are not happy. So the Quran wants us to broaden our heart, to widen our mind and our outlook in life, in our relation with people. And that's why on Eid Day we also have what is called Zakat al-Fitr. The goodwill of this day of Eid. The Quran says, don't eat away your wealth among yourselves without purpose. Use your wealth, acquire it, but use it for a purpose. Do not make purposeless your sadaqah. Zakat is also called Sadaqatul Fitr. Zakatul Fitr and Sadaqatul Fitr is the same, except that Zakat is a pooling and Sadaqah is the disbursement of it. So zakat is a pooling of charity, while sadaqah is private distribution. You select a few people and they go and they meet the persons and they give them that charity. So those who attain to happiness are those, the Quran says, what is happiness? How do you attain to happiness? Those in whose wealth there is a known right for the beggar and the destitute. That is what we do on Eid Day. What we do in celebration of Eid, the feasting, the eating, it's all mentioned in the Quran, also the giving, also looking after the less fortunate. And what you should spend. What can you spend? All of us are not in the same financial situation. The Quran says, spend what you can spare. Always work for such that it is beyond what your needs are, so you have something to spare. So that's an encouragement to work harder or to have less needs and demands so that you can have something to spare. So when the Quran speaks about it, contrasts two things, zakat and what is known as riba. Zakat is what is called purity of attitude towards others. Your mind must be pure. That's why it is associated with prayer that purifies our mind. Aqimus salat wa atu zakat. And riba is the opposite. It's a purity of attitude towards others. I want to take from the other one. I want to give them something, but I want to not pay them at all, or pay them, or when they pay me, I must have a certain amount of interest. But zakat and riba are moral concepts and behavior which Muslims have made into a material function, only the giving of money, not the development of attitude. So zakat is an attitude, the Quran tells us, that results in pardon and forgiveness. The Quran says Allah doesn't demand of you your wealth. He wants you to willingly give it. And zakat is also what we call growth arising out of divine blessings. What I have is a blessing of God. He has given it to me to flourish. Wealth from which a divinely ordained portion is extracted to be given to the lesser fortunate people. So zakat purifies the soul, not the money. There are some people said, well, you rob and cheat and gamble or whatever it is, and you pay zakat, so that purifies the money. Zakat is not to purify money. It is the wealth. It is to purify the soul, the individual. So giving charity is likened to a single seed, the Quran says, which grows into 700 grains. It multiplies. Giving does not take away from us. It adds to our wealth, not only physical wealth, but our spiritual wealth, our moral wealth. It makes me a happier person. It makes me a generous person. Or the Quran says it is like a garden yielding its fruit twofold. Very fruitful. So charity widens the heart of a person, making it capable of broad sympathies, broad feelings, whereas usury or interest narrows the mind and generates feeling of selfishness and greed. So true greatness is not in the possession of riches. True greatness is in the possession of high moral qualities. Spending in charity makes you great with Allah. The Quran says, whoever of you gives of zakah, desiring Allah's pleasure, these will get much more. So Allah promises you forgiveness from Himself, and He promises you abundance. Whatever good thing you spend, it will be paid back to you in full. These are assurances given in the Quran. And this is why it is important for each and every one of us, especially those who are working. And I recall many years ago when our Anjuman started here, there were housewives who didn't have a job, but they would take their grocery money and give aside until $5 for the propagation of Islam. Or people got their pension and they will give something, no matter how small, what you can spare. Every working person should say, when I get my salary, I need to give something for my religion, because I'm blessed by God. There are many people who don't have jobs. I may not be able to provide work for them, but I can provide a means of educating them, so they'll provide other means. As an Anjuman, as a charitable organization, we'll be able to do much more for our community and society. So in fact, the Quran says, whatever good thing you spend, it will be paid back to you in full. And the month of fasting, therefore, makes us aware that our religion, Islam, which teaches us that God will bless us with riches for our hard work, also teaches us that God will reward us for parting with them in furthering his cause. So he has blessed us, but he blesses us more when we part with them, when we give it away, when we give it to others. And so Eid al-Fitr assures us that how much pleasure you take, in fact, in acquiring worldly goods, but to find happiness, you have to give some of it away. And very often the Quran speaks not only of riba as interest, but it speaks about our responsibilities. It says we owe a debt to Allah and we always have to pay our debts. That is one of the important teachings of the Quran. It may take us a while, but we should always try to reduce that which we owe to God and to our fellow human beings. So that the religion of Islam is a religion that gives us tools to make us a better human being and to make a society a better society. Barakallahu lana wa lakum fil Quran al-Azim. ونفعنا وإياكم بالآيات والذكر الحكيم إنه تعالى جواد كريم ملك بر رؤوف رحيم. الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم انصر من نصر دين محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم واجعلنا منه. اللهم اخذل من كسر دين محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم ولا تجعلنا منه. What I've said just now is that, oh Allah, help those who help the religion of Muhammad and let us be from among them. And oh Allah, frustrate the designs of those who try to destroy the religion of Muhammad. Don't let us be from among them. In that light, I'd just like to inform you, as you're aware, this Ahmadiyya Anjuman Isha'at Islam owns this property, the Ahmadiyya Anjuman Mosque in Fireburn, is observing its golden jubilee. This was started by your forefathers, your parents, your grandparents. And we want to make this year something special for you. They are not here to enjoy it, but you are here. They have made sacrifices so that we can have what we have today. And so we are having a series of activities. One is the local Ahmadiyya caravan, where each of the Jamaats associated with the Anjuman will be having programs that the Jamaat will put on and showpiece themselves. Our Jamaat here also. And Anjuman will also have a piece that will be, a portion that will be taking part in. We also have a gala event that is coming up on our anniversary is the 9th of June, but that's a Monday. The 8th of June, therefore, we'll be having a gala event, probably at Ahmadiyya House. 2 days before that will be Eid al-Adha, Bakr Eid, the Friday, and Saturday, Sunday will be the gala event. One of the things we are having in the gala event is we would like to bury what is called a time capsule, so that 50 years from now our children will see what life was like 50 years ago. So if any of you have ideas or any items that you'd like to donate that will bury into that time capsule to be open 50 years from now, you can let me know and we'll make arrangements to have that included. We also have an international convention that is coming up in August, the beginning of August. I think it's the 17th and 9th and 10th that weekend. And all of these events are costing us quite a lot, and we will be approaching those of you probably by letters if you can make a donation towards it, because it's a lot of expenses. We'd like to have a prominent venue. We are looking perhaps even certain places like Hilton or Hyatt, where we'll invite people to come in. We have a whole day function. It's going to be a little different because 50 years we need to really celebrate in a much grander way. And we would like people to be aware of this Ahmadiyya Anjuman. That's why we are also working with the Ministry of Tourism to highlight this organization that has been here for 50 years. And as you know, we did have a visitor, the Laylatul Qadr night in our iftari here. We have provided the iftar boxes on this occasion, and they've been to witness that as well. So that any one of you would like to make from small or big, make a sacrifice and make a donation to the Anjuman, you can contact me, and if you'd like to get further information, we'll be sending out flyers and so on. Keep being aware of what is going on, and give every support possible, attend the functions, and learn. The main theme that we'll have for International Convention, and the theme for this year, is the return of Jesus upon a recipe for peace. We believe that the return of Jesus is a recipe for peace in the world. The world today needs peace. Too much of warfare rather than welfare. So we are going to present a different perspective to the world of the concept of the return of Jesus. It's going to be very interesting indeed. So with these few words, I'll just conclude the khutbah and then I'll pass on to the President of our Anjuman. Inna Allah ya'muru bil adli wal ihsani wa ita'i zil qurba wa yanha 'anil fahsha'i wal munkari wal baghi ya'izukum la'allakum tadhakkarun. Uzkuru Allah yazkurkum wad'uhu yastajib lakum wa la zikrullahi akbar. Assalamu alaikum. Eid Mubarak. May Allah shower His choicest blessings upon you. May He raise from our young people those who will be committed to the propagation of Islam. May He reward each and every one of you, increase you in your material welfare so that you can spend it His way. May Allah bless you all. Our President will now carry on with a brief program before we continue with some of the activities of giving the Eid treat to our children.